Steph Curry was forced to leave last night's game with what initially looked to be a left knee injury. In this video, we're going to take a closer look at the injury mechanism and talk about exactly how bad this injury could be. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Brian Sutterer, and if it's your first time here and you enjoy learning about underlying anatomy and mechanisms of the sports injury world, then consider subscribing to stay up to date with all my future videos and learn about future injuries. Initially, this of course looked like a left knee injury for Curry. We can see here as the Mavericks player is trying to drive in on him, he puts that left leg out to try to help cut off the dribble, and you can see how there's this moment of contact where the Mavs player basically strikes with his knee directly on the outer lower leg of Curry's left leg. You can see as a result of that, Curry's knee does seem to move inward a little bit, and so we can even see kind of in this position, his femur coming down here, the tibia down in about that direction. So there is a little bit of this knee valgus position because of that direct impact from the Mavericks defender pushing the leg in. We can see that again from this sort of side view here, right as that contact comes in, kind of right there. There's that little bit of sort of an inward push of Curry's knee going into that valgus position. Now, one thing that prognostically, if this were in fact a knee injury, is a good thing, is I want you to look at how Curry's left leg basically comes off of the ground. The outer portion of his foot comes off the ground right as that contact comes in. In order for that load to sort of be transmitted more significantly through the ligaments of the knee, especially something like an ACL, you really need to have sort of a rigid, fixed foot. As soon as your foot comes up off the ground, you can sort of knock the knee in a lot of different directions, and you're not going to have as much significant force and torque supplied up at the knee to potentially injure these ligaments. So it's important to have that anchor point when we talk about a bad injury. But if you don't have that anchor point, there's just not as much potential for that force to be high with torques at the knee. So here, when this happens, you can see how there is that brief moment right as that impact comes in. Curry's foot has already kind of come up off the floor. So it's almost like the impact and his momentum carrying him down the leg kind of brought the heel, brought the foot up off the floor, which in my mind lowers the potential risk for this being a severe, significant knee injury. Certainly something like an ACL I would cross off here because of how that foot comes up off the ground right as the contact comes in. Now, of course, thankfully, we since have learned that the Warriors are calling this a leg injury as opposed to a knee injury, which certainly makes this a much less concerning scenario overall. Anthony Slater pointed out on Twitter that Curry had actually been dealing with a leg contusion from a previous game coming into tonight. On this play against the Nuggets, you can see Curry goes up to shoot the three, sticks the left leg out, of course, trying to draw a foul here, but gets that left leg contacted, leading to some contusion bruising of that left leg. Now, this is more the medial or inner compartment of the leg that looks like it's contacted as opposed to last night. It seems like it was more the lateral, so kind of different location, but Curry was still clearly dealing with some injury and kind of trauma to that knee before even coming into the game last night. So now with our biodigital anatomy tool, let's look at some of these lateral structures that could potentially be contused or bruised with a leg injury. Here, of course, we have the outside portion of the knee. The big ligament that we worry about in this area is the LCL, or the lateral collateral ligament. It's going to run from the end of the femur, or the thigh bone, down actually to the fibula, specifically the fibular head, right in this area. But LCL injuries don't happen when there's direct trauma to the outside of the knee. They happen whenever the trauma comes in from the inside of the knee and pushes the knee outward, stretching the LCL. So I would not be worried about the LCL with this type of mechanism. What I would be worried about is potentially fracture trauma to the fibular head. There's very minimal muscle and padding over the head of your fibula, and so a direct load right to the fibular head could potentially cause a fracture, although more likely that would have been picked up on x-ray. I'll also say too that the knee from the Mavericks player seemed to hit Curry more down in kind of this area of the lower leg as opposed to higher up directly at the knee. So I would have fibular head fracture much lower on the differential. The muscles are probably just what's contused and bruised down here. In the lateral or outer compartment, we have two muscles, the peroneus longus and the peroneus brevis, and those muscles basically help to evert or turn our foot outwards. We then kind of work our way around to the more anterior compartment, which has a lot of the muscles that sort of pick our toes up, pick our ankle up, and so any sort of hit trauma to this area could potentially contuse or bruise either of those areas. And we see something like this happen in mixed martial arts a lot, right? Guys get calf kicked kind of right in this area, and that can hurt or sort of injure these muscles enough to where it can make it really hard to pick up your ankle and sufficiently protect yourself. Remember that there's also a nerve that lives up in this area called the common peroneal or common fibular nerve. It's a branch up off of the sciatic nerve coming down the back side of the thigh, and then it wraps around to sort of the front of the knee, right around this area of the fibular head. So a kick, a trauma, a knee, something right to this area can certainly kind of temporarily stun or injure that nerve, almost like when you hit your funny bone on the inside of the table. So overall, I have very low concern for this being something significant or prolonged absence for Curry. When we're dealing with just muscle bruises, those typically get better in a few days and are just more of kind of a pain limitation type of thing. And so unless we find some unusual fracture on the side of his leg, I would not expect this to be a long recovery. Even if this was a fracture to something like the fibula is a non-weight bearing bone. Those are going to heal much quicker, much faster recoveries than something like a shin bone or a tibia injury. So overall, I think things look much more reassuring for Curry now that we're hearing it's a leg injury and not that knee. That's it for the video, everybody. Thank you as always for watching. Let me know any questions or comments down below. And until next time, we'll see you later.